The briefing room was silent, the kind of silence that only comes when respect and disbelief collide. Admiral Rhodes stood before the unit, his voice sharp as steel, demanding answers about the failed extraction in Kandahar. Everyone was tense, except her. Lieutenant Mara Keene sat at the edge of the long steel table, her uniform crisp, her eyes calm to calm. She had seen this before, the whispers, the doubt, the way men in polished uniforms thought a woman couldn't carry a SEAL team through hell and back. But this time she wasn't going to explain herself with words. Lieutenant Keene. The Admiral's voice broke the air, cold and commanding. You're telling me you went back into a burning compound alone, after the evacuation order? Mara didn't flinch. She met his stare. Yes, sir. Rhodes' brow furrowed. You risked the lives of your men for what pride? That did it. The quiet room tightened around her heartbeat. Every SEAL present felt the sting of his tone. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. Mara slowly rose from her chair. The faint click of her boots echoed against the steel floor. The Admiral's eyes followed her every move as she reached for the edge of her shirt. Without a word, she lifted it slightly, just enough to reveal a long, jagged scar running from her ribs to her hip. Gasps broke the air. Even the hardened men who'd fought beside her fell silent. This, as she said quietly, was the price of going back for a fallen comrade. I'd do it again. For a long moment, no one breathed. The Admiral's face softened, his authority melting under the weight of what he saw. The scar wasn't just a wound. It was a signature carved by courage, by pain, by choices made in fire. Her mind drifted back to that night, the explosion, the screams, the heat that scorched her lungs. She'd gone back because her teammate, Corporal Diaz, was still inside. Everyone told her it was suicide. They weren't wrong. Through the haze, she'd found Diaz pinned under debris, his body half-burned. She remembered his trembling hand, reaching toward her. She'd dragged him through fire, through blood, through her own pain. Refusing to let him die alone now, standing before the Admiral, she saw the same disbelief she'd seen in every man who ever doubted her. But this time, she didn't care about convincing anyone. The scar said everything. The Admiral stepped closer, his voice lower now. Why didn't you report this injury? She hesitated. Because the mission wasn't about me. The room went still again. Even Rhodes, a man known for breaking the toughest recruits, looked away. He realized then that she wasn't defending her actions. She was defending her honor. When he finally spoke, his voice carried something unfamiliar. Respect. Lieutenant Keene, you saved a man's life, and you did it knowing you might lose your own. That's not pride. That's leadership. For the first time, Mara let her shoulders relax. But deep inside, she remembered the pain, the nights she couldn't sleep, the moments she questioned whether it was worth it. She thought of Diaz, now alive, walking again, training new recruits because she hadn't given up on him. As the Admiral turned to the others, his tone changed. Let me make something clear to everyone in this room, he said, his gaze sweeping across the stunned faces. You don't measure a soldier by rank or gender. You measure them by the scars they carry and the hearts they refuse to surrender. A slow clap echoed from the back of the room. It was Diaz, leaning against the wall with a cane, a faint smile on his lips. Told you she's tougher than all of us, said softly. The room erupted, not in laughter, but in applause. Mara blinked back a tear. One she hadn't let fall in years, because beneath the steel, the scars, and the silence, she was still human. Still someone who'd once been afraid. Still someone who chose to go back when she could have walked away, outside. The sun broke through the clouds, its light spilling across the naval base like quiet forgiveness. She stood by the window for a long while, letting the warmth hit her face. Feeling the pulse of the world continue, steady, alive. She thought of what the Admiral said. Scars don't define you. They remind you that you survived, and for the first time in a long while. Mara smiled. Because kindness doesn't vanish, it waits, and it finds its way back. The same way light finds its way through even the thickest smoke. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to Whispered Words. Leave a comment, sharing where you're watching from. And remember, heroes aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who stand up scarred and still choose to serve.